T-Roy, all us, Von, we used to be in cahoots. Yeah, used to have guns, but we just used to have it so that the big guys wouldn't call us pussy. It's just like when you grew up in the hood and it's like, you ain't getting no pussy, you ain't no nothing, you a lame, you a goofy, so niggas finna do what? We finna try to fucking do all this. We might not even want it, but like we finna try to open ourselves up to it so niggas can't talk about it. And then Von walked up to me and I shook his hand, he like, look straight. And then I look straight, and I'm like, why are you telling me to look straight? He like, look straight, and what I'm finna say to you, don't look at me after I tell you.
You see Mr. Banks' arm out the window firing several shots at the victim towards...
Davin Daquan Bennett, better known as King Von, still has the streets talking loud. Even though he's gone, his music kept dropping and his name kept popping up in headlines for all the wrong reasons. When his private life came to light, people realized just how deep Von was tied into Chicago's darkest corners. From gang wars to cold-blooded crimes that had folks labeling him a serial killer. Let's be real, a lot of rappers didn't just respect Von, they were straight up scared of him. And there were some solid reasons for that. Reason number 1, his crew was no joke. King Von wasn't rolling with your average rap entourage. Nah, he was surrounded by some of the most dangerous people out of OBlock, the kind of guys whose names carried real weight on the streets. They say you're the sum of the 5 people you hang with, right? Well, Von's circle was a whole lineup of certified street legends and nightmares to their enemies. You had guys like Lil Durk and the infamous T-Roy, real ones in the trenches. But T-Roy, he was a whole different level of feared. His real name was James Johnson, and even though he stood just about 5'1", that man's name made people freeze. He was known as a fearless shooter for the Black Disciples out of OBlock, and once he hit the scene, it was over for whoever crossed him. Even though the world didn't fully know him while he was alive, his legend grew after his death. His homies couldn't stop name-dropping him in songs and interviews, keeping his memory alive. There were even wild rumors that T-Roy was Chief Keef's go-to shooter, and Keef didn't exactly deny it. In fact, he fueled it in his track No Reason, where he spit, "I'm coolin' in the trap, getting high for no reason. T-Roy grabbed my strap, he gon' blast for no reason." That line alone told everyone exactly what kind of firepower Von had backing him. Chief Keef wasn't exaggerating when he said, "T-Roy, he got the semi, he'll send your ass to heaven." That line alone had people shaking their heads like, yeah, he meant that. And Keef doubled down in his track, Self, when he rapped, "Don't care if you with them numbs or if you by yourself, T-Roy got a gun that's bigger than him." Those bars weren't just lyrics, and they were straight up warnings. After T-Roy's death, everyone from OBlock who knew him spoke with both pride and fear in their voices. His crew didn't just call him loyal, they said he was a savage. Boss Top, one of his day one homies, described him as fearless when it came to the streets. Someone who didn't hesitate when things got heated. Another rapper, Tay Capone, went even deeper, saying T-Roy's whole routine was wild. He'd eat, sleep, and roll up on his ops, and that was literally his lifestyle, and make no mistake, the ops feared him. Tay Capone said it straight up, just hearing T-Roy's name had dudes watching their backs 24/7. But how did this young guy become one of the most feared figures in all of Chicago? There are a few theories floating around. One says T-Roy's rage came from years of being underestimated. He was short, barely over 5 feet, and in school that made him an easy target. Kids teased him, tried him, pushed him around, but eventually he snapped. He decided he'd never be picked on again, and the way he made sure of that was simple. He armed himself. He didn't just grab a gun, he made sure it was the biggest and baddest one on the block. That weapon became his shield and his statement, and nobody was gonna mess with T-Roy again. But there's another much darker story too. Jay Hood, another OBlock insider, claimed that T-Roy wasn't just angry, he was traumatized. He said T-Roy had witnessed his close friend and childhood hero get killed right in front of him. That moment broke something inside him, turning James Johnson into the cold-hearted T-Roy the streets would come to fear. On the night of August 10th, 2011, at around 11 p.m., the South Side streets were calm, too calm. Popular Wick City member Odie Perry was just cruising down the 6,400 block of South Martin Luther King Drive on his bike, probably thinking it was just another regular night, but what happened next would change the streets forever.
Roy just different, you know what I'm saying? He was a real enforcer. Shorty is a savage on another motherfucker that was fearless.
As Odie rode past the AutoZone, witnesses say a figure with dreadlocks moved in on him. Quiet, deliberate, ready for something deadly. Before Odie could even react, the person pulled out a gun and let off multiple shots. The piece was shattered in seconds. 2 figures were spotted sprinting away from the scene, jumping into a car that peeled off into the night. The hit was clean, fast, and cold-blooded. Odie was left on the pavement fighting for his life. As he bled out, his boy T-Roy ran to his side, holding him in his arms, desperate and helpless. Former OBlock member Jay Hood later said Odie's last words to T-Roy were chilling. "They got me, bro." That moment hit everyone in Parkway Gardens hard. Odie wasn't just another name in the streets, and he was a legend in the making. Loved and respected across Wick City, his death left a hole so deep that the entire block renamed itself in his honor, OBlock. His funeral was packed. People came from all over to show love, to pay their respects to the young man who'd become a symbol of their struggle and pride. For the people of Parkway Gardens, this wasn't just another loss, and it was personal. Nobody of Odie's stature had ever been taken like that by the ops. And while everyone felt the pain, one person took it the hardest. T-Roy. He was there. He saw it all. He held Odie as his life slipped away. First came the shock, then the grief, and then something in him snapped. That night broke the version of T-Roy everyone knew and built someone new, colder, harder, and ready for revenge. J. Hood said it best, that moment changed him forever. Before that night, T-Roy wasn't deep into the violent side of gang life. Sure, he had guns, but he wasn't out there hunting his enemies. But after seeing Odie go down like that, everything flipped. T-Roy wasn't just carrying for protection anymore, and now every bullet had a name on it. According to his longtime friend J. Hood, back in the day, T-Roy and the younger guys only carried guns because of peer pressure. The older dudes in the neighborhood used to clown them, saying they weren't built for the streets. So, to earn respect and fit in, they started doing things they didn't really want to do. But after Odie's death, all that changed forever.
This is one of those, like, he one of them type of, he wake up, eat, sleep, shit, this drill. Bro, you ain't got to be scared of him if you one of the guys, you know what I'm saying? But if you on that other side, you should be terrified of him. Like terrified of him, like, and for good reason. It's probably a little nigga syndrome. You growing up and shit. Everybody thinking you 10 years old. Probably got to a point where you was tired of him thinking because he little as shit.
That night flipped a switch inside T-Roy, and from then on, he became a whole different beast. His reign of terror officially began, and he wasn't hiding it from anybody. T-Roy started sliding on his ops whenever he got the chance. No hesitation, no mercy, no fear. He was so bold with it that he even went on social media to make it crystal clear. He was ready to handle business anytime, anywhere. Some of his most talked about victims were Boss Trell and Lil Doc, names that would forever be tied to his legend. It all started on January 8th, 2013. T-Roy, King Von, and two others jumped into a dark Chevrolet Impala and started rolling through their enemy's territory, creeping slow down 63rd and St. Lawrence, eyes locked and ready for a target. That's when they spotted Marlon Monroe, better known in the streets as Lil Doc. According to reports, Lil Doc had been painting his aunt's building in Woodlawn, just finishing up a long day. After work, he got thirsty and decided to hit the corner store for a quick drink, and that small move would cost him his life. As soon as he walked toward the store, T-Roy hopped out of the car with his gun ready. Without a word, he opened fire. Lil Doc tried to run, but one of the bullets caught him. He stumbled into an overgrown empty lot beside the store and collapsed, hidden by the tall weeds. Cops showed up soon after, taped off the area, and cleared the scene. But somehow, they missed his body in the dark. Hours later, a 16-year-old relative trying to make curfew cut through the same lot, and that's when he found Lil Doc's lifeless body. The scene was heartbreaking. Turns out Lil Doc had just gotten out of prison 2 months earlier. He was only 21, trying hard to turn his life around. He'd earned his GED behind bars, started getting a painter's license, and was even working maintenance jobs for his aunt. But the streets weren't done with him yet, and not long after that, another name got added to the list, Boss Trell. He was known for allegedly taking out one of T-Roy's close friends, Shiroid Shiro Liggins. That move made him a marked man. Cops later found Shiro's body on the 2200 block of East 99th Street, a single bullet to the head, clean and fatal. It didn't take long before the streets whispered who might have been behind it. And once again, T-Roy's name was in the mix. Boss Trell didn't even make it through the night. After being found bleeding out, he was rushed straight to Stroger Hospital, clinging to life. Doctors fought to save him, but the damage was too severe. Within hours, he was pronounced dead. His death was another dark reminder that in Chicago's street life, you either get out early or you don't get out at all. Before his murder, Trell had already seen the writing on the wall. He lived by the gun and knew deep down he'd probably die by it too. The streets were spinning out of control, and the only real escape was to leave. He had made up his mind. He was done with Chicago's chaos and ready to start over somewhere new. For weeks before his death, Trell had been dodging bullets, literally. OBlock's OB 600 members had already taken shots at him, and just days later, he was ambushed again, this time by King Von and Big A on separate occasions. Each time he barely escaped. It was clear, his name was at the top of somebody's list. So Trell started making moves to disappear. He planned a fresh start in Iowa, bought a bus ticket, and told his close ones he was leaving Chicago for good. His ticket said November 10th, 2012, his official getaway date, but fate had other plans. Just 3 days before he was set to go, Trell jumped on Twitter and shared his excitement, posting, "Can't wait till I get my new start." What he didn't realize was that those few words were about to seal his fate. That tweet told everyone, including his ops, exactly what they needed to know. The streets moved fast, and once his enemies caught wind that Trell was skipping town, they couldn't let it slide. There was no way they'd let him escape alive. The plan was brutal but effective. Use a girl as bait. Word is the girl hit him up and set up a meeting for the next day, acting like it was just a casual link-up. Trell, thinking nothing of it, showed up to the meeting spot alone. But when he got there, the girl was nowhere to be seen. The air was too quiet. Then, out of nowhere, a car crept up in the distance. Trell instantly knew something was off. His instincts kicked in. He tried to run. But by the time he took his first few steps, the shooters had already pulled up closer, guns out, and started letting off rounds. Bullets tore through the air as Trell tried to escape, but there was no outrunning what was coming for him that night. Chicago had claimed another one, and this time, there was no second chance. Trell never made it to that new life he dreamed of. As he tried to run for safety that night, a bullet caught him. And that was it. He hit the ground while T-Roy and the crew fled the scene, leaving behind chaos and sirens in the distance. Just 2 days before he was supposed to leave Chicago, Boss Trell was found face down in an alley on the 2600 block of West 83rd Street. A single shot to the back of his head ended everything. When the news hit the streets, his enemies couldn't hide their excitement. The ops flooded Twitter with cold-hearted tweets like, "Boss Trell thought he could get away from the rack, but look who he ran into." It was cruel. But in Chicago's war-torn streets, that kind of digital celebration wasn't rare. Everyone knew, if you live by the gun, chances were you'd die by it too. And just like that, karma came full circle. T-Roy would end up dying the same violent way he had lived, with bullets flying and blood on the pavement. On Valentine's Day 2017, instead of roses and love songs, South Shore was filled with gunfire. Around the 2000 block of East 71st Street, T-Roy and a friend were walking down the block, unaware that two of their ops, TB and Can't Get Right, were right behind them. Surveillance footage later showed TB and Can't Get Right slowly scanning the streets, hunting for their target. T-Roy and his boy eventually ducked into a store on 71st, trying to chill for a minute. Inside, he was seen down one of the aisles, laughing and talking with his homie, completely off guard. But seconds later, the door opened. TB and Can't Get Right walked in, moving with purpose. In the video, T-Roy's right hand can be seen behind him, clutching his piece, ready just in case, but he didn't get the chance to use it. TB raised his gun and fired. T-Roy dropped instantly, hit before he could even react.
T-Roy was like that with him his last little moments, and T-Roy and then T-Roy said that, oh, like, damn, they got me, bro. Like, that was his last word. Love, like, overly love. His funeral was one of the first deaths that was from the ops. When you one of the first to die, man, it hit hard.
The shooters bolted out, disappearing before cops could arrive. He was rushed to Northwestern Memorial Hospital, but it was too late. He died from his injuries. When word spread, the rap world felt it heavy. Lil Durk, Lil Reese, 600 Breezy, and Chief Keef all jumped online to mourn their fallen friend. Their posts were raw, full of pain and disbelief. At the time, King Von was behind bars fighting a murder charge, and when he heard the news from his mom, he broke down. On Instagram Live, Von admitted he cried, something he hadn't done in years. Losing T-Roy hit him deep. That was his brother, his day one. And the truth is, the cycle never really stopped. Even with T-Roy gone, violence kept circling the same blocks, the same names, the same pain. Lil Durk and others close to him stayed in the headlines. Proof that in Chicago's drill scene, peace is always temporary and every street legend eventually faces the same fate. Even though Lil Durk has never been officially charged with any crimes, the rumors around his name just won't quit. Streets have been buzzing that he might have played a role in the death of FBG Cash, especially since Cash wouldn't stop dissing King Von after Von's death, even going as far as disrespecting his mural. That move didn't sit right with anybody close to Von, and people could feel the tension bubbling online. Durk didn't stay quiet either. He threw out a cryptic warning that had everyone talking. On his Instagram story, he wrote, "Don't diss things if you be lingering and chasing won't end well." That's merch. Fans instantly believed he was talking directly to Cash. Then came the song Computer Murderers, where Durk took it even further, rapping, "Sneaking pics by Von Merle like Lil Bro won't come out and spin." The bar hit hard, too hard for some, and when FBG Cash ended up dead not long after, people started connecting dots. The streets say a woman set him up, and that's where the conspiracy deepened. The rumor was that Cash was lured into a trap, and Dirk's warning plus that setup story made many think it wasn't just coincidence. To Von's supporters, it sent one loud message. Even from the grave, King Von's name demanded respect. But Von's power didn't just come from his own hands, it came from OBlock, one of the most feared sets in all of Chicago. OBlock, part of the Black Disciples, has long been known as one of the city's deadliest crews, and when Von rose up in the rap game, he didn't forget where he came from, not one bit. Once the money started rolling in, Von made sure his people were taken care of. He blessed his crew with custom OBlock chains, threw money around the hood, and kept his loyalty solid. To him, they weren't just gang members, they were family. And that loyalty went both ways. Von's crew wasn't just riding with him in the streets, and they protected him everywhere. In an interview, his former manager, 100K Track, admitted he trusted Von's safety more with OBlock members than with any hired security team. That says a lot. Those guys were ready to ride for Von, no questions asked. They moved like an army, and the bond was deeper than business, but it was blood, pain, and survival. Sadly, that same loyalty would cost them dearly later on. 5 OBlock members ended up facing potential life sentences for crimes tied to Von's name. With OBlock behind him, King Von was untouchable. Or at least that's how it looked from the outside. But in Chicago, even kings can fall, and his story proved exactly that. Word on the street is that OBlock might have had a hand in the murder of Lul Pab, a close friend and right-hand man of Quando Rondo, and if that's true, it wouldn't come as a shock, because Quando's name has been tied to King Von's death since day one. Even though Quando wasn't the one who pulled the trigger, the disrespect he showed toward Von in his music didn't sit right with anyone from Chicago. Those words hit deep, and for Von's people, it was personal. After the shooting that took Von's life, Quando didn't hold back in interviews either. His sit-down with another outlet stirred even more chaos. In one clip, Quando said, "Whoever come for me, that's how I'm gonna go about it. Death threat all you want, bro. That's just words. My go do an action," that line didn't calm anything down. It poured gasoline on an already burning fire. By late 2022, it seemed like Quando was running out of luck. On November 19th, 2022, chaos erupted at a gas station in Beverly Grove, Los Angeles. Reports say several gunmen rolled up and ambushed Quando's entourage in broad daylight. He managed to escape unharmed, but his people weren't as lucky. When the shots rang out, one of his closest friends, Lul Pab Didesmaldis, was hit badly. The scene turned frantic as Quando's crew scrambled to save him, loading him into a black SUV and speeding off. They drove nearly a mile to West Hollywood, where cops quickly pulled them over, responding to 911 calls about gunfire nearby. Footage from the scene went viral instantly, Quando screaming in shock as police pulled Lul Pab's limp body from the car. It was raw, tragic, and heartbreaking. Officers tried performing CPR as cameras rolled, but it was too late. The ambulance rushed Pab to the hospital, but he didn't make it. He was pronounced dead not long after. Quando later confirmed the loss himself, posting a picture of him and Lul Pab on Instagram with a broken heart emoji, a painful tribute to someone he called family.
At one point, you take the picture in front of OBlock, in front of the King Von Bureau.
Mm-hmm.
So what was going on with all that?
Dirk told me to do that.
Dirk told you to do that?
Yeah.
Now, even though no one from OBlock ever claimed the hit, the streets have their own logic. Fans and insiders started connecting dots immediately. The timing, the setup, and the motive all looked too familiar. Just like FBG Cash, Quando had been publicly disrespecting Von's name, and soon after, tragedy followed. The message couldn't be clearer. Messing with King Von's legacy was a dangerous game. The people Von surrounded himself with weren't regular friends, they were shooters, street soldiers, and real enforcers who handled business without hesitation. If you crossed Von, you crossed all of them. And that's exactly why so many rappers feared him while he was alive, and even more after he was gone. The loyalty around King Von was deadly strong, and for his crew, vengeance was more than a word. It was a promise. So here's the real question everyone's been wondering, and was King Von just guilty by association, or was he really just like the dangerous people around him? Was he truly a cold-hearted killer, or just a product of the life he grew up in? Let's be real. Von's charm and rap talent made him a star, but behind the fame was a much darker story. His bloodlust was something even his own friends couldn't deny. While fans still argue about his innocence, the truth is, plenty of people close to him came forward after his death and admitted that Von had a side most never saw, and it wasn't just street gossip. The feds themselves had receipts tying him to shootings and murders across Chicago. After his death, YouTube exploded with videos breaking down his alleged crimes, painting him as a modern-day serial killer. Some reports linked Von to multiple killings, but investigators confirmed at least 3 major cases where Von's name came up heavy. Gakira K.I. Barnes, FBG Duck, and Alexander Weatherspoon. These weren't just random street beefs. They were brutal, calculated hits that turned Von into one of the most feared rappers in the industry. But before we get into those murders, let's rewind to another reason Von had people shaking, his hands. Because if Von couldn't get to you with a gun, he'd catch you with a fade, no hesitation. Inside and outside of jail, Von had a reputation for fighting anyone who disrespected him, and he made sure people knew it. Several wild videos leaked after his death showing exactly how ruthless he was, even behind bars. In one clip, Von can be seen walking straight up to another inmate and throwing hands with no warning. The two traded blows while other inmates scrambled to pull them apart before it got worse, but that wasn't even the craziest part. Another video that shocked everyone showed Von slipping out of his handcuffs like some kind of magician before launching himself at another inmate. The footage shows him suddenly jumping up, wrestling with his cuffs, and then, somehow, getting one hand free. The moment he broke loose, he went straight for his target, pounding on the guy and knocking him down while two other inmates jumped in to help him. Prison guards rushed in seconds later, dragging Von and the others away to break up the fight. But everyone watching that video had the same question. How did he even get out of those cuffs? Even the guards were stunned. They swore he'd been cuffed tight, yet Von slipped out like it was nothing. That move turned into a legend in itself, the kind of story people tell to explain why nobody wanted problems with him, even in lockup. At that point, it didn't matter if Von was armed or restrained. The man had pure aggression running through his veins. Whether he was in the studio, the streets, or a cell block, King Von carried the same energy, fearless, unpredictable, and always ready to handle whoever tried him. Turns out the inmate King Von went after that day was none other than 051 Freaky, a known member of a rival crew. And according to Lil Reese, Von didn't just attack him for no reason. Freaky had a disrespectful tattoo of L.A. Capone, which Von took as a personal insult. For context, L.A. Capone wasn't just some random name. He was a promising young rapper from Chicago who had deep ties to Lil Durk and the OTF camp. On September 26, 2013, tragedy struck when L.A. Capone was leaving a recording studio around 6 p.m. He walked down an alley near 71st Street and Stony Island Avenue to grab his car. And that's when someone from a rival set, later identified as Lil Mick from 051 Young Money, ambushed him. Capone was gunned down on the spot, ending what could have been a major rap career before it even started. So years later, when Von saw Freaky flaunting that tattoo, it lit a fuse. Inside that cell, Von wasn't just fighting another inmate, he was defending the memory of one of his fallen brothers. And that moment summed him up perfectly. Reckless, loyal, and always ready for a fight. But Von's temper didn't stop behind bars. Outside jail, he was still quick to get physical. And that same instinct would lead to the moment that ended his life. The infamous fight with Quando Rondo wasn't planned, it was a spur-of-the-moment decision that spiraled out of control. On the night of November 6, 2020, Von had just flown from New York to Atlanta. He was in high spirits, ready to celebrate the release of his debut album Welcome to OBlock with an after-party at Opium nightclub. After the club, everyone expected him to head back to the Airbnb to crash for the night, but Von had other plans. He told his team he wanted to make a quick stop at Monaco Hookah Lounge, and that decision would change everything. And once he pulled up to the lounge, Von waited in the parking lot for his security to clear things before he went inside. That's when one of his guys pointed out something shocking. Quando Rondo was right there, sitting in his car.
Hey, y'all was like a pest. I remember her riding on the bike, like, you know, taunting us, and nigga, we trying to chase her back on the block, but she get out of that skirt on the bike, she gone. And she was somebody that, like, we had just run up on K.I. and you know why I just ran up on them niggas and caught K.I. She was the last one running out of the gate. And I'm just in my head like, damn, for real? And sure enough, after he told me that, sirens came.
Without hesitation, Von jumped out of his vehicle and stormed toward Quando. By the time Quando got out of his car, it was too late. Von swung first. In seconds, fists were flying as Von and his crew started beating down on Quando, knocking him to the ground. The parking lot turned into chaos, with both entourages caught in a wild brawl. Then, everything changed in an instant. A man later identified as Lil Tim, one of Quando's close friends, jumped out from the other side of the car with a gun drawn. Without warning, he opened fire into the crowd. Von was hit badly and collapsed on the pavement as people scattered in panic. His team rushed him to the hospital, but despite doctors' efforts, he was pronounced dead during surgery at Grady Hospital in Atlanta. That night, hip-hop lost one of its rawest storytellers, a rapper whose rise had been just as fast and fiery as his fall. And the truth is, Von's reputation didn't just come from his lyrics, it came from his fearlessness. Whether it was fists, firepower, or raw energy, Vaughn never backed down. That same boldness that made him a legend on the mic also made him a target in the streets. One of the most chilling stories tied to King Von's name is the murder of Gakira Barnes, the 17-year-old better known as K.I. Her name still echoes through Chicago's drill history, a teenage girl who gained a reputation most grown men feared. K.I. was no ordinary teen. She was a known gangster disciple, and her crew, STL/EBT, was in direct war with Von's people from OBlock, who repped the Black Disciples. She was rumored to be the one who killed the beloved O.D. Perry, one of OBlock's most respected names, the same person the block would later rename itself after. And instead of staying low after the hit, K.I. did the opposite. She bragged about it online. On social media, she taunted OBlock members non-stop. She even posted captions mocking OD's death, calling him target practice, and allegedly showed off his own gun, claiming she took it after the shooting. Her boldness wasn't just reckless, or it was pure provocation. Those online antics didn't just go unnoticed, they infuriated King Von. From that moment on, Von allegedly made it his mission to catch her lacking. According to police reports and street whispers, he plotted to take her out the same way she had taken Odie. The situation turned into one of Chicago's deadliest cat-and-mouse games, with Von and KY both knowing exactly who they were up against. By the time KI was killed, she had already earned the nickname, the female assassin. Blogs and street forums painted her as a legend, but to OBlock, she was a nightmare that needed to be stopped. What made her story even crazier was how young she really was. Behind that hard image was a teenage girl who once dreamed of becoming a social worker. Her mom described her as sweet and loving, a girl who just got caught up in her environment too early. But life on the South Side doesn't spare innocence. Everything changed for KI on the evening of January 12, 2011. Her close friend Shondale Tuka Gregory was standing at a bus stop on East 63rd Street when he was shot and killed right there on the sidewalk. Tuka's death rocked her to her core. That moment flipped a switch. She wasn't just sad, she wanted payback. After that night, KI turned cold. She started sliding on opps, building her name as one of the youngest and most dangerous girls in Chicago. In the streets, they called her Snoop, a reference to the ruthless female hitwoman from The Wire, and she lived up to it. Rumors say by just 14 years old, KI had already caught her first body. Some claim she was connected to as many as 20 murders before she even reached adulthood. Whether all those numbers are true or not, one thing is certain. Her name struck fear in the hearts of anyone repping OBlock, but that same energy she brought to the streets would come right back around. Just like O.D. Perry, KI met a violent end, gunned down in the exact way she used to handle her enemies. And the streets never forgot who she was or who might have made that call. In the deadly back and forth between OBlock and STL/EBT, KI and Von's rivalry became one of Chicago's darkest legends. Two young killers whose stories were fueled by revenge, loyalty, and loss, and ended the same way they lived, and with blood in the streets. On April 11th, Chicago's South Side saw one of its most infamous murders, the killing of Gakira K.I. Barnes.
And what I know is, on my dead, Von didn't kill Kai. I got shot too. I was right there. I got shot too. I saw the motherfucker who popped us. He did.
Around the 6,400 block of South Eberhard Avenue, a hooded gunman walked up and opened fire in broad daylight. KI was struck 9 times in the mouth, neck, and chest before she tried to run but collapsed on a neighbor's doorstep where she lost consciousness. Moments later, she was rushed to Northwestern Memorial Hospital, but sadly she didn't make it. At the time, KI wasn't alone. She was walking with her brother FBG Buddha and a friend when the shooter appeared. Both of them were hit too, but they survived, which made it clear that KI was the main target. Someone had come specifically for her. It didn't take long for whispers to spread across the streets. King Von's name was being mentioned. Eyewitnesses told police that Von matched the shooter's description, wearing a gray hoodie and blue jeans, and he was even arrested for the crime. But just as quickly, he was released. The evidence wasn't strong enough for prosecutors to push it to trial. The case went cold, and officially, Von walked free. But years later, after Von's own death in Atlanta, the truth started surfacing. Police reports from 2023 revealed that investigators had later confirmed Von as the man responsible for KY's murder. The report stated that the shooter approached 3 victims, produced a handgun, and fired multiple shots before jumping into a getaway car and vanishing. One of Von's close friends, Jay Hood, backed up those claims. In an interview, Jay Hood admitted that Von had personally confessed to him the day it happened. He said Von told him straight up that he had shot 3 people, and that KI was the last one he hit before running off. Right after that confession, Jay said he heard sirens blaring in the distance as Von smiled like it was just another day on the block. However, not everyone agreed with that version. FBG Buddha, K.I.'s own brother who was with her during the shooting, denied the story completely. He insisted Vaughn had nothing to do with it, that people were just using his sister's death for clout. But that denial didn't hold for long. According to newly surfaced police documents, Buddha later confessed to investigators that King Von was, in fact, the one who killed his sister. The report even quoted him saying, "Cooperator 3 was also present for and witnessed the murder of his sister, Gekira Barnes, by OBlock member Davin Bennett." That single statement blew the case wide open. For years, rumors about Von's role in KY's death had circulated in the streets, but now there was official paperwork linking him directly to it. It was the kind of revelation that shook Chicago's drill scene to its core. And the wild part? That wasn't the only body tied to Von's name. Investigators also linked him to the murder of Carlton Weekly, better known as FBG Duck, another high-profile hit that turned into one of Chicago's biggest gang-related cases ever. By the time all of this came out, Von was long gone, and there would be no trial, no closure, no confession, just paperwork, stories, and legends. The reports only confirmed what many had already believed, that King Von wasn't just a rapper who told stories about the streets, he lived them. And for those who knew him, and those who feared him, it proved once again that King Von's reach went far beyond music. Even in death, his name still carried the kind of weight that made people whisper before they spoke it out loud. Just months before King Von's own death, another major tragedy shook the city in the murder of FBG Duck. On August 4th, 2020, Chicago's streets went silent after news broke that Duck had been shot and killed in broad daylight near Michigan Avenue and East Oak Street, right in the heart of the Gold Coast, one of the city's most high-end areas. This wasn't just another shooting, everyone could tell immediately. This was a targeted hit. It didn't take long before the investigation pointed straight toward OBlock. On October 13th, 2020, federal agents raided the block and arrested 5 men for Duck's murder. Charles Liggins, aka C. Murda, Kenneth Robertson, aka Kenny Mack, Carlos Offord, aka Loss, Christopher Thomas, aka C. Thang, and Marcus Smart, aka Muop. The charges were stacked high: murder, racketeering, unlawful use of firearms, and assault with deadly weapons, all carrying mandatory life sentences if convicted. There was even talk about the death penalty being on the table, which showed just how serious the feds were taking this case. According to court documents, investigators learned that there was a bounty placed on FBG Duck's head, starting at $50,000 but later bumped up to a shocking $100,000 when no one wanted to do the job at first. That's when things got even messier because rumors started swirling that King Von himself might have been behind that bounty. At the time, Von's rap career was blowing up fast, and he was one of the few from OBlock who actually had the kind of money to fund something like that. An informant reportedly told authorities that a certain individual from OBlock put up the money and then rewarded the shooters with custom-made OBlock chains after the hit was done. Fans quickly started connecting the dots, especially after an old clip resurfaced online showing Von handing out those exact same custom OBlock chains to his crew just weeks before Duck's death. While nobody could prove it outright, the timing was suspicious, were too close to ignore. It fueled online theories that Von had personally greenlit the operation, both as revenge and as a message to anyone still daring to diss him or OBlock on record. But the story didn't end there. The internet sleuths, and later the feds, uncovered something even crazier. According to leaked documents, the confidential informant who gave up key details was allegedly Von's own little brother, Louis Vive. Records showed that Louis had been arrested on August 17, 2020, just 2 weeks after Duck's murder, for unlawful use of a weapon.
If a motherfucker run up on me, I will shoot you. No problem. I will shoot you.
No one else from Von's circle or OBlock was picked up on that same charge on that same day or in that same location. It was enough for online detectives to start putting the pieces together, believing that Louis Vive fit the profile perfectly described in the federal paperwork. If true, that meant someone close to Von may have cracked under pressure and spilled key information to avoid facing serious time. The streets were divided. Some refused to believe it, while others said it made perfect sense, considering how tight the feds were closing in on OBlock. Whether or not Von actually put up that bounty, his name was all over the case, and once again his loyalty to OBlock, the same bond that built him up, was dragging his legacy deeper into controversy. In the end, what happened to FBG Duck became one of the biggest gang-related federal cases in Chicago history, and the fact that King Von's name kept surfacing only added to his deadly reputation, even after death. On top of everything else, rumors spread that Louis V, Von's younger brother, might have known about Von's move on FBG Duck since the two were close. That made the whole situation even messier, giving rappers and street figures more reason to fear King Von. By then, everyone knew Vaughn wasn't just dangerous with words, he had the money, the reach, and the connections to put real bounties on people's heads. And one man who was lucky enough to survive a run-in with him was Alexander Weatherspoon. It all went down on February 5th, 2019 in the parking lot of the Varsity, a well-known restaurant in Midtown Atlanta. Around that night, the peace was shattered when shots rang out, sending people running for cover. Cops arrived within minutes and found a 23-year-old man lying wounded near a car. That man was identified as Alexander Weatherspoon, and he'd been shot in the leg. According to witnesses, a dark SUV with 300 plastered on the side sped away from the scene right after the shooting. But it wasn't just a drive-by, this was a robbery and assault. Reports said Weatherspoon was robbed of his gold chain, $30,000 in cash, and his vehicle before being left bleeding in the parking lot. After a few months of investigation, police made some huge arrests. King Von, Lil Durk, and Bezu, also known as THF Bezu, were all taken into custody in connection with the shooting. That meant exactly what people had suspected for years. Vaughn was the real shooter. He was the one who pulled the trigger that night and shot Weatherspoon. And get this, Weatherspoon wasn't just a random target. He was allegedly a member of the Vice Lords, one of Chicago's oldest and most notorious gangs. And that made him an op in Vaughn's book. For Vaughn, it was personal. That night in Atlanta wasn't just about money, it was about sending a message. Knowing the kind of environment Vaughn grew up in, none of this shocked the people who really knew him. He was raised around shooters, hustlers, and street soldiers, men who lived and died by the code. Violence wasn't something new to him, it was part of his DNA. So when he became a star, that same mindset never left. Whether it was a fistfight, a robbery, or a full-blown shootout, Vaughn was always ready for action. And that's exactly why he was feared. Not just by rivals in Chicago, but by rappers across the entire industry. To them, King Von wasn't just another rapper with tough lyrics, he was the real deal, someone who lived everything he rapped about, and that's what made him both respected and terrifying at the same time.